Joseph Richard Horling.
And
And,
what year were you born? What year were you born?
October 1st, 1920,
And where?
in Rahway, New Jersey,
In Rome, New Jersey.
in the Second Ward. And we lived there for about, well, maybe 10 years, 10, 11 years. Then my father bought a building on Irving Street in Rahway. It had an apartment upstairs and the business was downstairs. So then we lived there until 1934.
And that was your father's business down below?
But that,
That was your father's business down below?
yeah. My father and my mother, they both worked together on that. So then we lived there until 1934, and that's then the year I went to high school. I went to St. Peter's High School in New Brunswick. And
Now where was your mother from? And when
my
did she
mother's
immigrate?
from Austria, Freiwaldau. Now it's Czechoslovakia, but there was Austria at that time.
And what year did she immigrate?
She came over here around 1910 with a girlfriend, and her sister lived up in Connecticut because they were all weavers, and they went up there because in that area of Connecticut they did a lot of weaving, so that's why she went there and to stay with her sister. And then she was only there to pay off her passage to her sister. Then she went to New York, and she worked as a nanny in New York. And then she met my father, and they were going together and so on like that. And then they got married in New York.
What made her and her sister decide to come to America?
Well, it was the trend in those days. America was like a pot of gold that they say that people were saying the streets are lined with gold. So that's why, well, thousands of immigrants from all over came to the United States. My father came here, not that he wanted to, but he was forced to, because when he was in England, he posed as an Italian because his name was Anthony. He could speak and read and write Italian, so he got away with it. He posed as an Italian. And he was working on the ships, and he was trying to get a ship that went to a neutral country. Now, America was still neutral at that time, and he was trying to get a ship to go to a neutral country. He couldn't go to the Bahamas, he couldn't go to Canada. They were all British or French possessions. So finally he got a ship that came to America. And he landed in America, and the ship laid in the harbor maybe like for 4 days. So he stayed on the ship for 3 days, and then that night he jumped ship. And that's how he came over here. So we always used to say to him, you know, you were the first displaced person that came over here.
Now, why did he pick Rahway?
Well, all right, now he's in New York, and he met these German fellas in New York, because America was neutral at that time, yeah. He met these fellas that were German, and he was in his sailor suit, and that's all he had. So they said, look, you come with us, we live in a boarding house, and a fellow will give you a pair of shoes, another fellow will give you a pair of pants and a shirt. So that's how we got a little clothes to put on. And he says, we're going to take you to the Waldorf Astoria. Now that's the old Waldorf, where the Empire State Building is now. And these fellas were all waiters in the Waldorf. So they said, we're going to take you to the Waldorf, we're going to get you a job. So they got a job for him as a waiter. And he worked under Oscar. He was like the maitre d' there at that time. And so he worked in the Waldorf, and then he met my mother in one of the dance halls, and then they got married. Then my brother was born in New York. And then when World War I came along, the decree came out that all foreigners have to leave the ocean, the port area. You can't stay in the port area. So he came over to Jersey, and he got on a train, and he was heading west. He didn't know where he was going, and this train stopped in this little town. He looked out, and he seen nice flowers on the flower boxes on the station and all. So he got off the train, and it was Westfield. So he got my mother to come over. They found a place to live, so he lived in Westfield. So then he was working in a factory in Westfield, and well, of course, then he met some friends. And this one fellow he got friendly with, he lived in Rahway. His name was Pete Godfrey. And he said, why don't you come to Rahway? Because my father was all alone in Westfield. You know, he had nobody. He said, why don't you come to Rahway? And there's some German people over there and all. So he came to Rahway and he found a place on Scott Avenue. And there was like a little Germany there. There was all German families around there. So he felt more at home that he was with his own people, German people. They could talk to and all. Of course, at that time, Miracle now was in World War I, but they weren't locked up or anything like that.
Right.
But then when he got to Rahway, then he worked in the Regina factory for a while. And
what did Regina do?
well, the Regina made at that time they made music boxes, and the discs that they were about that big around, and they were very popular because we traveled around in this country, wife and I. We seen some of these music boxes, antiques. So that's where he worked in that factory, and then he did that for a couple of years. Then he started his own business downtown.
So what year did they move to Rahway?
Well, it must have been about 1919, because I was born in 1920.
Okay.
I was born on Scott Avenue, and that's the second ward, and Merck's was only down a few blocks on Scott Avenue.
Any brothers and sisters?
No, it was just the two of us. Yeah.
Who's the two of us?
Well, my brother and I.
Okay, yeah, brother and I. And what's his name?
His name was Anthony, like my father.
Anthony.
He was Junior.
Gotcha. Now, from originally in Germany. Where was your father from? What town?
My father was from Munich.
From Munich. Okay.
Munich, yeah. My mother was from Austria. Freiwaldau was the name of the little town. But he was from Munich, and his father, what they called his business that time, he was a Schlosser, a locksmith too, you would say over here. But his business was mostly doing iron work, you know, making iron railings and all for stairs and balconies and things like that. So that's what my father was mostly into, but it was also locks too at that time. So that was, well, let's see. Well then, yeah, then I said my father then opened up a business in Rahway, and we lived on Scott Avenue for a while. That's where I was born. And then the building that he bought in town had a store underneath, and there was an apartment house on top, upstairs. So we moved into that. So I was maybe a year old or so when we moved into that.
Is that building still there or no?
No, that building got torn down, oh no, I would say about 25 years ago.
So every building we're going to talk about has been torn down except this one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that building was torn down, but where it was on Irving Street, the Empire Theater was on one side, and the Public Service Building was on the other side. Now, those two buildings are still there yet.
Yes. Right.
The Empire Theater is no more a theater. It's there's businesses. They make businesses downstairs, and upstairs they have business offices. And the other side, where the public service was, that was also an office. And in the back, they used to park the trolley cars in there. Then after the trolley cars were not there anymore, they used it as a power station. And that building is still there yet, but nobody's really been in all these years. They're trying to sell it, but I don't know why. It's a good, nice building.
That's where Tesla started, right? Isn't that where Tesla had his power stations? The gentleman who was running, what's his first name? Tesla. He was competing directly with Thomas Edison. So there's two gentlemen, Thomas Edison and this gentleman Tesla. So Tesla started up a station in Rahway. There's actually a statue of
That I
Tesla.
didn't know.
Yeah, so I know there was a power station back there.
Oh.
But
Well, of course, with Edison, his place was in, with Thomas Edison, his place was in Edison, New Jersey.
Right.
And the monument is still there yet, but all his engineers and everything all lived there in Edison. Yeah.
right.
Well, Edison, that's what they call it now, but it's
Menlo
really
Park.
Menlo Park.
Menlo Park.
Yeah.
His original building is up in Detroit, Michigan. They picked,
Yeah, in the oranges.
no, Henry Ford took the Menlo Park building,
Yeah.
brick by brick.
Oh.
And he has a museum up in Detroit. So
Okay.
he has all the old buildings. He has the Wright brothers'
Yeah.
first building, but he collects like all these important events. They were
Yeah.
very good friends.
Yeah.
So the company that was in Menlo Park, he picked up brick by brick, even the trash that was outside the windows, and relocated to
Yeah.
Detroit.
Well, I was there a number of years ago with my daughter and son-in-law. We went to Edison's museum there, and very interesting, very interesting. We have so much history in this part of the country. People don't realize what we have here.
Oh yeah.
You know, all they know is New York City, but so much history. Yeah. Well, after then he started the business in Rahway in the store, and I went to local schools. In fact, I went to public school for the first 4 grades, and you know, some of the children that I went to school with in the kindergarten and so on, I still remember them. In fact, I seen in the paper today, there's a black lady that lived in Rahway. She just died. The obituary was in the paper today. I was in school with her.
Wow.
She belonged to a family that her father was a minister in Rahway. Nice people. And I was in school with her. And I seen that in the paper today that she just died. So her wake, I think, is on Thursday. I want to go there.
Oh, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I think the family really appreciate that.
Yeah. So
I don't remember who I went to school with. I don't know how you remember.
well, I went there for 4 years, and then the funny part about it was in the 4th grade I had a woman named Miss DeSoto. She had the 4th grade, and I'm getting ahead of myself now, but it ties in. I had her in the 1st grade. Then after the 4th grade, I went to St. Mary's School, parochial school, because
Where was that?
that's also in Rahway.
Rahway.
In fact, this lady that just died, her parish or her church is right across from St. Mary's. The 2 churches were right in the same block.
Right.
And let's see, what was I going to say? I forgot what my train of thoughts was.
Miss DeSoto. You were talking about DeSoto.
Oh yeah, about this woman I had in the 4th grade, Miss DeSoto. Well, many years later, when I got married to my school chum and so on, my wife got a job teaching in Rahway, and it was in a Columbian school down where a lot of people knew the old building there was Pure later, and before that it was the National Nomadic. There was a school there, a Columbian school. So my wife got a job teaching, I think it was 3rd grade in that school. And who should be working in that school as a teacher was this Miss DeSoto that I had in the 4th grade. It's hard to believe, but I mean, so many years went by, and she taught for a few years there, you know. Yeah.
I had the same thing. My aunt, who is 70-something years old, I had the same 1st grade teacher as she did, Mrs. Michaels.
Yeah.
40 years later, same thing.
Yeah, and she was a nice lady. She never married, but she was a nice lady, though. And I know she taught there for a few years, but I don't know. I guess she must have passed away then.
And how was your childhood growing up in Rahway?
Well, it was good. I grew up right in the heart of town on Irving Street. I remember the trolley cars. And the Empire Theater was next to us. It was vaudeville at that time. No movies, there was vaudeville. And then later on, silent movies came in there. See, I lived next to that, and my father knew the manager, so I could go in any time with my brothers to look at the movies or see the vaudeville, you know. And they had girl ushers there, I remember at that time. And so I seen a lot of things that happened in Rahway. Like across the street from us, there was a building there, and the Ford company was in there. And I remember there was people coming up with the Ford cars, and they had that magneto in there, and they would let the car run. They would shut it off. And I always was afraid that if that thing shut off by itself, it would blow up. I was always afraid of that. So, I mean, that was, and then, well, there was restaurants there, and then individual stores, grocery stores, and shoe stores, and it was, you know, it was in town, and Friday night was shopping night in town, so all the stores were open. So we lived upstairs, so my father would be down in the store like until about 9 o'clock, and of course a lot of time it was the old timers coming by and chewing the fat, you know, and about what happened years ago and all. But anyhow, that was the Saturday night, and we had a big yard in the back of our house, and I always wanted a pony, and there were magazines that came out that had little problems in there, and if you did certain things, you could win a pony. Well, my aunt, bless her soul, she worked so hard to win a pony. You know, the dots couldn't touch one another and all, and I never was lucky with that. So one day my father says to me, he says, "I can get you a pony." I said, "Yeah." He says, "Yes, there's a farm up in Clark. He has a pony. They want to sell it." He says, "You want it?" I said, "Yes, I want it." So, and that farm was where St. John's the Apostle Church is in Clark. That's where the farm was. So anyhow, we brought the pony home, and we had 2 or 3 sheds in our backyard. So I put the pony in one of the sheds, and we had a big yard. So what I did, I had a saddle and everything with it. On Saturday, when the families were in town with their kids, I had the pony on the sidewalk, and the little kids wanted to ride or take a picture. And I said, "All right, 2 rides around the yard for a nickel." So that way I made money. And sometimes there was a party, birthday party, not too far from where I was. I would go there on a Sunday or Saturday for a couple hours, and I would get a few dollars, you know, for having the pony there. Well, with that money that I made, I could buy the food, the oats. I even bought a blanket for her, and I put shoes on her, and I mean, I made money. Not that I got rich, but enough to take care of the pony. And
You still have the shoes, right?
And she was always in the backyard on the grass, and the hoofs were getting higher and higher. So I says, I better take the shoes off. So I took the shoes off, the 4 little shoes, and we put a wire around them to keep them together. I still have them today. And about, I don't know, a couple of months ago, I brought them here to the club one time and show and tell on our Tuesdays that we worked. And they all were amazed to see the little pony shoes. I mean, you all know what a horseshoe looks like because we used to play games with the horse shoes. But these pony shoes were so small, and I still have them yet. Now, they are about 80 years old.
Did your dad make them?
And they're like brand new.
Who made those?
We had 2 blacksmiths in town. There was one down on Cherry Street, and there was one over on Campbell Street. The one down on Main Street, or Cherry Street, is the one that made the pony shoes. They made the pony shoes for her. I don't know what it was, but I don't know, $5 or something like that at that time, you know.
Gotcha.
But I still have the shoes yet, and
that's great. I've seen them.
It's an heirloom. So that was living in town. So I seen everything that goes on. Well, we had parades and all that stuff. They all came down Irving Street, so we had front seats. I remember when the Graf Zeppelin came over the first time. We went up on top of the roof of the building, and my father lifted me up and held me, and then we could see the Graf Zeppelin going by. That was an experience that I don't forget either.
Was it going through from Manhattan to Lyndhurst, or where was it traveling? Was it like Manhattan or to Lyndhurst, or do you know where it was going? Because they stored them down in Lyndhurst, New Jersey.
No, you mean the dirigible?
The Zeppelin, yeah.
Yeah, no, it came like, say, from the Elizabeth area, you know, flew around like that.
Right.
Just to sightsee, because it had to go down to Lakehurst to
Lakehurst,
go into the hangar down there.
Right.
See? But but it was amazing to see the Graf Zeppelin. And then, of course, later on when the Hindenburg came over, it did the same thing. But one time I was down the shore with, I don't know, my brother or a buddy of mine. We were laying on the beach, and the Hindenburg flew right along the water line, all the way down like to South Jersey, and it flew right over us. It was an amazing sight. Yeah. I've seen a lot in my life. Still a lot more to go yet. Well, now then when after we lived we lived on Irving Street for about a dozen years. Then my father got a house in the second ward up here, and so we moved into that, and we lived in there for all our lives. And yeah.
So
second ward, I was born in the second ward, and of all my 95 years, except for 10 years I lived downtown. I think that's the third ward or so, but otherwise I was always here in fact, today I still live in the second ward.
So you met your wife in high school?
Hmm?
You met your wife in high school, correct? You met your wife in high school?
Well, my wife, I met her in New Brunswick in high school.
Okay.
Yeah, we were in high school together. So we graduated in 1938. And she went to Newark State Teachers College, but I worked in the shop, and then I had some other little odd jobs around, ushering a theater and a couple of factories and stuff like that. But my wife, then she graduated in 1941, and she came, she lived in New Brunswick, and she wanted to get a job. She couldn't get a job because you had to have experience. So how do you get experience if you don't get a job? So finally she got a job up in Newton as a teacher. And she said, with all those farm kids up there, you know, she said, they smelled like cows coming to school, you know. But she endured that for a couple of years, and then she got a job. Well, then we got married, of course, and then after the children were raised, then she got a job in Galway. She was teaching in Galway in Columbian School, and then when they closed that school, they moved her to Roosevelt School on Route 1, and she had the 4th grade there, so she worked in there until she retired.
Now, where were you when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Well, in Pearl Harbor, that day I'll never forget. We had friends from Elizabeth, Maffey's. They would come over on a Sunday, and they had 2 boys and 2 girls, and Tony and I, and they would talk, you know, and listen to the radio. So the 2 boys and my brother and I, we went bowling around 1 o'clock or so. We went to the bowling alley and we went bowling. And we came home, and they were all glued to the radio. Shh, listen. Hey, what's the matter? What happened? They say, Pearl Harbor got bombed. Where the heck is Pearl Harbor? Nobody knew where Pearl Harbor was. They said it's in Hawaii. So we were listening because they didn't tell you anything. They just said it was bombed, but they wouldn't tell you what was sunk or casualties or anything like that. They just said it's very serious. So I wasn't home when they bombed it, but when I came home, they had it on the radio, and we all listened to it. Of course, every few minutes, news reports would come in, but that's the day I'll never forget. And then the day after, on Monday, that's when Roosevelt declared war. Yep.
Did you hear that speech through the radio, or did you hear his speech through the radio?
No, I was overseas when peace was declared.
No. When Roosevelt made his declaration of war,
yeah.
Did you hear it over the radio, like live, or?
No, I wasn't in the army at that time.
No. When you were listening to the radio.
Yeah.
Like the next day when they declared war.
Yeah.
How'd you find out that we declared war? Through the radio?
Through the radio.
Through the radio.
Yeah. Oh, sure. There was no television in those days.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you got the paper.
Yeah. No. It was radio. Yeah.
Did you hear his speech?
No, Roosevelt. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
after we declared war, what did you do?
Well, after he declared war, that was on a Monday of,
41.
that would have been the 8th of December.
Right.
Well, of course, fellas were all rushing to enlist, but I was trying to get into the Merchant Marine, and so for the next 6 months, I was home yet, and then I got into the Merchant Marine. I was in that for 6 months. Then I came home, and then that's when I went to the Army. But from Pearl Harbor till June, I was home. You know.
What did the Merchant Marines do? What is the job of a Merchant Marine?
Well, it was to learn about, you know, being a crew on a ship and so on, navigation and all that stuff. But I made a trip down to Aruba, Curacao. That was wartime. And, you know, at that time they were sinking the ships like anything out there in the ocean. It was terrible. I mean, you talk about sometimes where this oil is washed up on the shore here. That happened during the war down on the Jersey Shore, because they were sinking the tankers like anything out there. And not only the oil, but the oil will congeal in big globs like that. And if you went into the water to bathe, you'd come out, you'd have all this grease all over your body. I'll never forget that. Yeah. But that was after Pearl Harbor, because they weren't sinking them after we went into war.
Right. So then you enlisted into the Army. Then you enlisted into the Army.
Well, I was going to volunteer in the Army, but they said, you don't have to volunteer. You're in the next group going in. That was in January.
Right.
And then my brother got the same notice. I said, the two of us are going in the same day. So you can imagine how my mother felt when we both left the same day. And it was a day that excuse the language, but it rained like hell that day. It poured. I'll never forget that. Fellas from Rahway, we got, Margie knew, my intended wife, so to speak, she knew I was going into the service that Friday. So she was up in Newton. So she got on a train to Newark. And she knew I was leaving in the morning. So this was in the morning. So she got a train from Newark to New Brunswick. Well, this train came in where we all got on. And she was on that train. What a piece of luck to have her on that train. So we were together on a train with all these guys from Rahway. Oh, they had a ball with her, you know. They said, "Boy, you're lucky. You got your girlfriend here with you and all, you know." So, and the train then only went to New Brunswick. And then we all had to get off. Even the passengers, everybody had to get off, because the thing went down, I think, to wherever the deadhead, the engines or so. So I was there with her, with all the guys and all, and then another train came in, and we all got on as fellas, and that train then took us to Dix.
And that's when she left. She left you. She didn't.
Yeah, well, see, she lived in New Brunswick, so then she went home.
Oh, perfect.
And but it was funny though. All of those, I don't know, about 50 guys from Rahway, you know, and I mean not from Rahway, from northern Jersey too, that they got on like in Newark and all. But what a coincidence that she was on the same train. You know, if she would have got a train maybe 10 minutes earlier,
yeah.
10 minutes later, I would have missed her.
Right.
But, so we only went as far as New Brunswick, and then we all had to get off then. Yeah.
So you went down Fort Dix for basic training?
Yeah. And it was raining. Oh, I'll never forget. I had like a light overcoat on. They gave us a box. They said, put all your clothes in that box and put the address on it. We're going to ship it home. So it came home, and when my mother got it, she just put it all right in the garbage, because it was all wet and mildew and all that. But yeah, and that was, I don't know, it was probably 1 o'clock or something like that, or 2 o'clock maybe when we got to Dix. And us guys were all hungry. What they gave us a bag with an apple in it and a sandwich to eat. Oh, gee. But I tell you, it was a good experience. I had good luck being in service. I was lucky. My brother was lucky. We didn't see any war. We were in it, but we didn't see any casualties or so. Because he went into the Air Force, I went to the Armored Force, and well, I don't know if I should tell you all this, but I played the saxophone, and we had an orchestra before the war. And so we would play in the beer joints and stuff like that. I was only a kid in high school playing in the beer joints. One time we played the Linden in a beer joint down there, and the cops came in and they said, "You kids are all minors. You got to come down to the police station to be fingerprinted." So they took us down there, we got fingerprinted, then we came back and continued playing. But I played all over with these 4 or 5 guys. So when I went into service, and when we were in Fort Dix waiting to get shipped out and all, they had a band there, a Jeep band. They played for Reveille and Retreat. And so one day I come back to the barracks, and this guy's sitting there on that bunk. And I says, "Hey, what the hell are you doing here?" Because we all had details to do. He says, "Hi, playing a band." I said, "You playing a band?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "All we do is play for Reveille and Retreat." I said, "How do you get into that band?" He says, "Go over and see Sergeant so-and-so." So I went over there. He says, "We need guys like that. You're in a band." So I had no more details. Just played this. So I did that for maybe 4 or 5 days. One day you'd have 6 guys in the band. Next day you'd have 10. Then you'd have 5. You know, they were coming and going all the time.
Right.
So then the whole bunch of us got on a train and we didn't know where we were going, but we went to Fort Knox then. So when I got to Fort Knox, not to tell you everything, but I got involved with, after basic training, I got involved with special services. They had an orchestra, which they played for dances and so on. I mean, we didn't get paid, but it was just something to do, you know. So I played with special services saxophone. So one time I came home on a 3-day pass, and I got a telegram from my first sergeant. He says, "Bring your horns home back with you." Of course, I was using the GI horns. He said, "Bring them with you." Well, I couldn't lug them, so I came home without them. I told Sarge, "My father's going to have a box made." He sent them down to me. He said, "Okay." So he says, "We're going to have a company orchestra." So we had a company orchestra, and but I was still playing with special service besides, you know, on the weekends too when I wasn't playing. We'd draw a 6x6 out and put all the instruments in there and stuff. Well, anyhow, then I was playing, especially more with special services, and my wife came down for the summer, and I got quarters to live. And on the weekends, I would play with the orchestra, and I'd take her with me in a 6x6. Now, no civilian was supposed to ride in
Right.
you know.
Military.
So
Right.
I'd have the driver here, and I was on the other end by the door, and she'd be in the middle, and we'd be riding down the road, and the MPs would come into it. We'd duck her under the dashboard. But that was for the summer of '44, but I mean, I didn't get paid or anything like that, but it was to do something, you know, and it was things that I wanted to do. So then we had a company orchestra. So then she came down at Christmas time, that week off from Christmas, and so I got a room in Louisville in a hotel, because our company was packing up to go overseas, and so she lived in Louisville, but she would come on the post during the day, and I'd be with her because we had nothing to do, you know. So she'd be sitting in the PX, you know, and we would be sitting there fooling around, drinking and so on like that. And then at night, well, then at that time, then I could go home with her, you know. But the funny part about it was, this one fella, while we're in this process, this one fella, he went AWOL out to Kansas or something like that. So the captain sent a fellow with a gun and all to go and get him, bring him back, because we were packing up to go overseas. So he comes back with the prisoner, and so the prisoner was restricted to quarters, you know, he wasn't locked up. But he had this guard with him with a M1 rifle, you know, guarding him. So one time we were in the PX, just shooting the breeze. Marge was there and all. And this guy says, he says to the,
Just close the door.
so he says to,
What's that?
Put the code in.
No, I'll take care of it. Thank you.
he says to the guard, he says, I gotta go to the bathroom. So the guard gives the prisoner the gun. My wife seen that. She couldn't get over it. Here's the guy giving the prisoner his gun so he can go to the bathroom. She never got over that. So then, New Year's Eve, I'll never forget that. We shipped out of Fort Knox, our company did, on a train. And she left that night to come back to Jersey. So she was on a train heading east. I was on a train at that time heading to Chicago. Now, we didn't know which way we were going. But when we got to Chicago, we turned west. We said, we're going to the Pacific. And we went all the way down like to Arizona, then came back up again all the way to Seattle, Washington. But she left that same night, and I left that same night. And we were on a Pullman train, just our company. We had black porters, dining room, and all that stuff, and bunks and everything. Oh, I tell you, it was it took us about a week to get to the first.
Now, did you have to keep on switching trains and engines, or with the same engine?
Oh yeah. We'd go so far, especially at night. We'd lay there on the siding, like, you know, to switch engines and crews too.
Right.
The porters stayed with us though, but the engine crews they changed engines too.
Right.
And sometimes they would stop at a little town or a hamlet or so, and the guys would run off and get some beer, you know, and soda and stuff like that.
Right.
But the same crew wasn't on the engine, but the crew from it was all black porter, Pullman porters. They stayed on the whole train, all the way to Seattle. Yeah.
Because you would think as you're going through different areas, different railroads, you would have to switch to their equipment. But I guess during wartime, just keep it going.
Well, see, we didn't have equipment. We had a few Jeeps and trucks, you know, 6x6s, but we had no tanks or anything like that. Because we were an ordnance outfit.
Right.
We repaired these things. That's what we did in Knox. We did all the repair work for the trainees. The tanks that were out in the field, and the Jeeps and the half tracks and all, because the trainees, they knocked hell out of those tanks. They would lock the tracks off, or they do damage to the trucks or so. You know, so I mean, that's what we did. We serviced that. And another thing too, going back that far, there were companies that were going to ship overseas from Knox. They issued them all new clothes. So their old clothes, even though it was good clothes, they were left lay in the barracks. And they would call that stuff Class X. So the guys in my outfit, I didn't need that because I didn't work out in the fields. I did work in the fields, but not in the mud like they did. They would go to these barracks and get the clothes that they needed, pants and shirts, and bring them back home. So when they were in the field, they'd come back all mud on. They'd just throw that in the garbage, you know, put these clothes on. So they made use of that stuff. But it was funny though. You see, some of the clothes was still practically good, new. You know, now it knew everything. You know?
Right.
Yeah. So, but then after we left, but when we got to Seattle, I forget the name of it, Camp Stoneman, I think that was. Then we got suntans and all. Well, then we knew we were going to the Pacific. And then we got on this APA Navarro. It looked something like a destroyer. Mm-hmm. It was a brand new ship and a brand new crew. They'd never been to sea. And we got on board. Our company had to pull guard duty that night. And what the hell are we going to guard? There's all GIs on there. A lot of blacks down in the hole, you know. Oh, geez. I gotta watch it.
That's right.
And I was sergeant of the guard, so I had to put guards down on the hole, up on the bridge, and out on the wings on the bridge and all. So, and we had a storm. That damn thing almost turned turtle. Oh boy, it was bad that night. So I got seasick, and I'll never forget this fellow, Bill Orr from Brooklyn. He was on the bridge, on one of the wings. He come running in, and the lieutenant there on the bridge. He said, "Oh," he says, they had these rafts on there. The raft is breaking loose out there. So Lieutenant said, "Well, starboard report." What the hell do I know about it? I'm a soldier. I never forget that. You know, Brooklyn talking. What the hell do I know? I'm a soldier. Oh, gee. But then the sea calmed. It was right. I think we were at sea for about 7 days. So we entertained the troops on board. We had the orchestra. We trained it, and besides that, the guys in our outfit, I tell you, we had fellas that worked that were in the circus. This guy would eat razor blades and glass, and he would put a big heavy rope around his neck and pull it. And he had a board with nails in it. He lay on that. Joe LaPointe was his name. Then we had all fellas that sang, you know, and also we entertained the troops going over. Oh, Jesus, I tell you. I mean, I didn't have a sad day in my life with it being in a service like that. And then we got overseas, and then they put us on these, remember those trolleys that little Abner sold, they had little trolley cars or something like that. That's what they put us in to take us up to the camp in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. And so when we got up there, we got settled.
So now you're in
Oahu. In Hawaii, Oahu, yeah. Right. And our lieutenant colonel, he was a West Pointer. He was in charge of morale, you know. He had the baseball team and all that stuff. He found that we had an orchestra, you know, like about 6, 7 pieces. He found out we had an orchestra. He says, "You guys," he collected us. He says, "You guys we're going to make this a big orchestra. We're going to get guys from other outfits. We're going to make it a battalion orchestra. You guys practice for a whole month. You got no detail."
Wow.
He was a lieutenant colonel, a West Pointer. He was a hell of a nice guy. So we practiced for a whole month, you know, and we got the latest music, the orchestrations, and we played all over. NCO clubs, officers clubs, USO, and one time we had and we had 3 carryalls. They were like vans, you know, right, to put our instruments in it and music and all that, the stands and all that stuff. So we had 3 of them, and we had a nice pink shirt with suntan pants. That was our dress for playing, you know. We played all over. Nobody ever said, officers clubs, nobody ever said anything. So one time we had to go play for the Marines. So we went down to Pearl with the vans and all, come up to the gate there. The Marine looks in there. "You guys are out of uniform." "Well," I said, "we're supposed to play for you for a dance this afternoon down here. I can't let you in. You guys are out of uniform." I says, "All right." I said, "We'll turn around and go back home." When he heard that, "Oh, no, that's all right. All right, come on, you come on then." You know, he was probably a PFC, you know, trying to throw his rank around. Right. Besides, we had a lieutenant in our band, in our orchestra, which he was just like one of us, you know. Of course, we called him lieutenant, but still, you know, we drew the line in some places. But we had him with us, you know. But he says, "You guys are out of uniform." "All right, we'll go back home." And then I will never forget, now this was after the war, then the war was over. New Year's Eve we played for the Officers Club in Kenny.
What was at the end, when the war was declared over?
It was over in September.
Right.
First it was over in May, April and May in Europe. Mm-hmm. And then Pacific, right, you should see the stuff coming over, the supplies, the tanks and everything. They didn't need it in Europe anymore.
Right.
Because they were going to invade Japan in November. Mm-hmm. And boy, that was like pulling a cork out of a bottle. So, but now, then the war was over in September. So then they went according to points. The fellows that were overseas 2 and 3 years, they had high points. And every day the points kept dropping. Well, anyhow, New Year's Eve, I was still over there yet. So we played for the Officers Club in Kenny Owen Navy Base. I'll never forget that. You know, they had a bandstand, and the ocean was right in back of us. You could hear the waves lapping, and just like a picturesque Hawaiian scene. It was really something. So the war was over, but they were going by points. They kept dropping the points every day. The fellows that were overseas had the most points. They got home right away. So my brother and I, we had the same number of points. So our time came.
Now he was still in Florida, right?
Huh?
He was still in Florida?
No, he was in Hawaii with me on the same island.
So he ended up...
We would see each other every once in a while. He'd get a Jeep, or I'd get a Jeep, or a 6x6.
Now, is that complete coincidence, or did they say, okay, your brother's here, your family's here, we move you here? Or was that complete coincidence?
I didn't...
Was that complete coincidence?
Was what?
Was that complete coincidence that happened, that your brother was there? Or did they say, okay, your family's here?
No. See, he went into the Air Force. I went into the Armored Force,
right.
Tanks and so on. He was stationed down in Miami. Then he went to Aberdeen, small arms like I was. He had also small arms, but he was on fighter planes. I think it was the P-40s.
Mm-hmm.
But when I came over as ordnance, because there was an ordnance outfit there, they shipped them out to Okinawa, and we stayed there. He came over. He was out in the pineapple fields in ordnance on P-40s.
Right.
No, we were not together.
No, I'm saying, but it was just by chance that you're now in the same...
Well, we had a code that the family would know where I was and where he was.
Gotcha.
So when I got to Hawaii, he came over a month later. He knew I was there.
Right.
Because I says, I'm on Oahu. Okay? So then he looked me up. And then I went to his place a couple of times. But then the war was over in September, and the points were dropping down, so him and I, we had the same number of points. So we went together to the embarkation, to the docks. We got on the lure line, which was the passenger ship, and the bunks were like 5 high. So he was on the bottom one, and I was like the one above him or so. And we came cross country on the lure line, but at that time it didn't take no 5-6 days, like I think 3 days, because the funny part about it, the Saratoga aircraft took a lot of GIs, sailors back. That damn ship, we passed that about 3 times going, it was so slow, I don't say we passed it, but there were ships that made the regular run, they passed it like 3 times before that got to San Francisco, because it was a slow carrier. But when we got to California, then we all had suntans on. And in January, they had no uniform for me. They had clothes for him. So all they gave me was a field jacket. So when I got to Dick's, then I got my ODs. And he had his ODs. So
what is an OD?
Olive drab.
Okay.
That's what we call not the khaki, but the green one.
Right.
Called them ODs. And they were wool. I still have that today yet.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
I wore it up till about 5 years ago. I kept wearing it. And I think I could still put it on yet. Yeah, and the rhyme medals and the hash marks and all that stuff, But so we came home and we got discharged the same day, and I had a pair of boots and I had a blanket that I had my whole time in the Army, a nice woolen blanket. So when we were being discharged, I put it on a bunk where we were staying, and an extra pair of boots. So when we got discharged, we came back and picked that up. My father was there with the car. We went on home, then, but I still have that blanket today. In fact, it's in my car.
Really?
Yeah.
That you've had the whole time?
I have it in my car because I figure if I ever break down and it's cold, I got a blanket that's
a good
warm.
blanket.
I used it a few times. We were watching fireworks or so, where I live, and it was cool. So I had the blanket put it across the women's legs, But I still have it. Yeah. So, but and then of course when we came home, Well, like I say, my uniform, I could still wear it, but my brother, though, he outgrew his then. Yeah. Yeah. I tell you, I had a good time in the service, and so did he, too. I mean, I know it was hell, but, you know, for every GI up the front, there's about 10 GIs in the back, you know, backing him up with ammunition, food, clothes, transportation, you know, all that stuff. So,
Absolutely.
but we serviced for the trainees at Knox. We serviced it, and then I used to go out on the ranges, rifle range, machine gun range, and I serviced the weapons out there. And if something went bad, if I could fix it, I'd do it. If not, I'd take it off the line and give him another machine gun or another M1 rifle.
Right.
And my brother was the same way, but he was on the planes, so he had the machine guns on the planes.
So you came home, you're already married.
Yeah, we were
So-
both married.
So you're both married, your brother and...
Yeah, he got married in September. I was married in May. He got married in September.
You have a competition between your brother the whole time? Or
No.
Let's sign up for the same day, let's get released the
Yeah,
same day.
same and both staff sergeants.
Right, right.
And I was overseas a month or two before he was.
Mhm.
See, we had a code that all my friends and all this, wherever they wound up, I knew where they were. You know, they would say, well, somewhere's in the Pacific, but I knew where they were.
Right,
Or
right.
they knew where I was.
Right.
Yeah?
So when you got back home, where did you and... I'm sorry, your wife's name was
Margaret.
Margaret.
Yeah, well, she lived in New Brunswick.
Okay.
Or, yeah, because she was in Roselle, teacher in Roselle. What the hell is that grammar school's name over there?
Washington School?
No.
Harrison?
Harrison.
Harrison?
She taught in Harrison.
Really?
Her girlfriend worked in that school, Harrison School, and then of course she got married. Marge was married, and then they lived up in North Jersey. We were good friends until they died. Yeah.
So did you move into... When you came back, did you move to New Brunswick with her?
Well, then yeah, because see, my brother, our bedroom in the folks' house was empty, so my brother moved in there with his wife. He had a baby then,
Mhm.
because the baby was born while we were overseas in September. So he had a son, and that was Butchie the Third, Anthony the Third.
Anthony III.
So he moved there with them, and in Marge's house, they had an attic. It was like a room up there, so we were up there. So then my brother bought a house in Clark, that part of Clark where the Slates got their trucks and stuff like that on the parkway.
Where the what got there?
On the parkway, the state highway has got trucks and sand and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like service, not
Service-
service,
like a
for them.
depot,
Well,
right.
in that area is where he bought a house there,
Okay.
a brand new house. So
That's
then
before the parkway.
Huh?
That's before the parkway then, right? Yeah, before the parkway.
Yeah.
Parkway wasn't
yeah,
there.
Yeah, and so then that room was empty. So I was working with my father-in-law. So then we moved to Galway. Then I lived with them. I moved in then, yeah, right at Christmas time, and I think it was about April or May. I moved out of there because I bought a house in back of us. It was an old house, even it didn't have any heat in it. So I bought that. I put space heat in it. So then I lived in there. Yeah. But I can never say that I had a lousy time in the service or it was mean or crazy. I mean, a lot of fellas had it rough. Millions of guys had it rough. But we always had food to eat, dry clothes, and then wind up in Hawaii yet besides,
Right.
Yeah.
Now, how many children did you have?
6.
6 children.
6 children.
Six
yeah.
children.
Yeah. My brother, he had 6 also, but he lost one in his house where he was living there. See, on Wednesday we used to take off from the shop. So he was home on that Wednesday. His wife was working or something, she wasn't home. And his boys were there. And the youngest was Donald. He was about 3 years old. And his house caught fire. And at that time, the telephone company was on strike you couldn't make a phone call. So he couldn't make a phone call to call the fire department. So somebody, I guess in Clark, I don't know if it was, I don't know which firehouse it was, but maybe it was the one by the city hall, probably.
There was one right by where the Clark Circle is. That's where the original one was. Where the TD Bank is? Not TD Bank, Investor
Well,
Savings.
anyhow, somebody went with a car there to tell the fire engine, you know, so they came back. And they were all outside. And all at once they missed Donald. They said, "Where's Donald?" You know, he was the youngest of them all. "Where is he?" "He's gone. He's gone." So I said, "Where the heck could he be?" Fireman went into the house, to his room. He was in his crib. He was laying on his blanket, and he had his head like this against, this was the backboard of the bed. His hand like this, his head was against it. He was dead. And they brought the body out, and he had his fingerprints on that bed, the heat, you know. Yeah, so he lost one. So he had 5, but he had 6. And he was a boy, yeah. He was about 3 years old.
That's a shame. Shame.
Yeah. They were all outside, because she wasn't there. She was out shopping or something. So he had them all around him. But, you know, with 6 kids, all right, you're watching this guy, but you don't know where the hell this guy's going, you know?
Right.
And he ran into the house because he knew he would be safe in his bed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they found him. Yeah.
That's a shame.
So I have 6 too, but I tell you, I got a good family, I'm really blessed with my family. I pray for them every day because, boy, the oldest one is a chemist. The second one is an aeronautical engineer. The third one, Peggy, she was from St. Mother's Seton. She was the highest in the graduating class, the first graduating class. She was a business administrator, vice president of Chubb Insurance Company. Her sister is a secretary to the business administrator in Rahway. Carol, she's a dental hygienist. She works for a couple of dentists, but she also teaches dental hygienist. She went to college for that, so she teaches that. And Tina, the youngest one, she's a doctor. She's a kidney doctor. She's out in California. She works for Kaiser Pimenti out there. Mm-hmm. So all 6 of them got good jobs, you know, good kids, yeah.
I guess you did good.
Yeah.
When did your wife pass away?
Yeah. Tina's the youngest. Now she just turned 60. and so I kid her. I said, "I can retire." He says, "Yeah, in a couple of more years you're going to retire." You know. And then her husband's a doctor. Now, see, when Tina worked in the field for 4 years before she went to med school. She worked down in Research Triangle down in North Carolina. I don't know what she was doing. Then she worked for the Exxon over here in the offices that were on Route 1. He worked there. And then she decided she wanted to go to med school. At that time, the girls were getting in, you know.
Right.
So she applied, and she got an appointment for the DO. And she said, "All right, I'll take the DO, you know." So then a week later, the MD came through. So she dropped the DO, took the MD. And she went to college down in Piscataway, the med school down there. That's where she went to college. It was part of Rutgers.
Rutgers, right.
So, and then she told me later on, she said, the DO, we had them in our class. She said they did the same things that we do, but they don't have an MD degree.
Right,
see?
right.
But she says they do the same thing. So she got the MD, you know. And her husband, he was down in Grenada. There's a school down there. He couldn't get in up here in the med school because they're taking women at that time.
Right, right.
So he went to Grenada and he got in the school down there. That's where they invaded. Remember, the Marines or so. But this was I think before they invaded. And yeah, it was before they invaded. So he went to med school down there, and then he finished med school. Then he came back to the States, but he didn't have all his qualifications. You know, he didn't have them all. So he couldn't get his MD in. So he joins the Navy as an MD. So he got his degree through the Navy. He put 10 years in the Navy. He was on the
Nice.
carriers, on the Constellation. He went around the world with that thing. But, he acted as a doctor, but then he got his degree. But he says he had control over the pilots, and they had to fly every so often. And he had to go up every so often to get flight pay. So sometimes he would, a guy that had, he was like a colonel or so, in the Navy, he would ground him. He says, "You can't fly. You're not fit to fly now. You gotta wait." Oh, and the steam was coming out of their ears, But then he had to go up once a month or so to get flight pay. So then the guy that took him up knew that he gave his boss hell, He said they put him all through all kinds of loops. He said, "I gave him down, I was green." But he was on a Constellation. He went around the whole world. I don't know, he landed in Singapore and he went and had a suit ordered, and see, within hours the damn suit was bought, But now he's a doctor.
Right.
And but he's a general practitioner. Mm-hmm. Now his daughter, Claire, she just graduated last May from med school out in Omaha. So we went out there for the graduation. So she did her first, she couldn't get into med school, so she paid her first year, I don't know, like $20,000 or $30,000 for the first year. Then she found out, she said, if she goes into the service, they'll pay for it. So she went into the Air Force, was made a lieutenant, and they paid for the schooling. And then she graduated last May, and she's at the, what the hell is that Air Force base out in California? Kessler, not Kessler. It's up off Sacramento. It's a Air Force base. Mm-hmm. That's where she's a doctor there. See? But she's in general practice. So she's got to pay back the 4 years. Then she's got to pay back another year or two. So she's about in for about 4 years, and then like 2 reserve.
Right.
But then she made a captain. When she graduated, she made captain.
So how many grandkids and great grandkids do you have now?
Well, she's one of my granddaughters. She's one of 14.
One of 14.
Yeah.
Any great grand? I know you have great grandkids.
Yeah.
How many great grandkids?
Guess. 14.
14 great grandkids.
No. And I've got 5 grandsons or granddaughters that are not married yet.
You don't have any great grandkids yet.
Yeah, great grand. I got 14 great grand, and I got 14 grand.
Wow.
And my oldest great grandson, he's a junior in high school now. Now they're talking college about him. He wants to be an engineer. So now they're looking for colleges.
Right.
They live out in Indiana. So, and he's got his own car.
Another 10 years, you'll have great grandkids.
Well, all right, he's the oldest, but then I have a granddaughter. She's the oldest. Great-granddaughter. Mm-hmm. She's going to high school this coming year, so she's about 14 now. 4 years from now, I could be a great-grandfather. But this fellow,
we won't show this to her.
Well, he's the oldest, see, and but he's going to college, so that would be 4 years. But the great-granddaughter, Veronica is her name. She's an artist. She does drawing. Mm-hmm. So she's going to that kind of school, They live in Newark, down Neck. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So she's going to high school this fall, and her other cousin who is a year younger, that's Gabby, she's going to the 8th grade this fall. Yeah. And then from there they go down the lines, 9 years old, 7 years old. And then I've got 3 great-grandsons that were all born around in May. Mm-hmm. So they're roughly now 6 or 7 months old.
Right. Wow.
There's 3 of them.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
So I just hope I would be long enough to see this fellow graduate from college, but I don't know. That's stretching it.
You made it this far.
That's 4
just
years.
Keep going.
4 years now. Well, we used to say years ago, we used to kid him, stuff the son of a gun, wake him up when we want him, you know. That's what the Irishman used to say at the wake, you know. They're all in the kitchen drinking and all, and they'll say, "Oh, why don't we stuff that stuff and keep the party going?"
So let's talk about the Deutscher Club. So
Well, I practically grew up in this place because at that time,
start with your father.
At that time, the club was family. You know, we were all close together.
Well, how did the club, in your words, how did the club start?
Well, it was just a group of men getting together and talking. You know, at that time, you knew who Germans were. You know, so you would congregate that way. And there was a delicatessen. There was a German family that had that. So
What was the name of it?
So the 3 or 4 men, 5 men, they met there.
What was the name of the deli?
Greenwall.
Greenwall.
Yeah, Nicholas Greenwall. And I don't know what his wife's name. I can forget her name. But you know, not to change the subject, but my mother, my brother and I, and my mother, we went to Germany when I was about 5 years old. So that would have been about 1925. But coming on the ship, coming back, I remember vaguely that the son of this couple was in Germany somehow. And he was on that ship coming back. Yeah, Teddy Greenwall was his name. And he was on that ship coming back. So, but they were in business for quite a while in the delicatessen. But that's where the fellas would meet, though, you know.
Do you remember the address, or what street was that
It
on?
was Irving Street. I wouldn't know what the street number was.
And that's no longer there, correct? That building's there, not there anymore. That building is not there anymore.
No, there's a bank there now.
It's a bank
The
now.
bank is the whole block. There used to be, on one corner was like a 2-family house, one in each one. Then there was a delicatessen. Then there was another house on the corner there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that corner house there's a bank there now. Yeah.
So these guys would all congregate, and they just said, "Why don't we?" What made them start a club?
Well, you know, it's like in a group of people, like your firemen or so. A group of people get together, right? They all spoke the same language, you know. Or army fellas get together, and they talk about the army, you know. It's just fellas getting together. Or they'll say, "Oh, look I know a guy that was in Hawaii. Maybe you was there when he was there." You know, things like that happen.
Right.
But it was the men. There was half a dozen men, you know, and then from there, sometimes I guess the wives say, "You know, I'd like to meet Mrs. So-and-so or so."
Mm-hmm.
So then they go to the hotel where they had tables like this that they could sit around and talk. And then the hotel owner was German. They were German people. So, you know, see, I mean, years ago, people that, like Italians that came over, or the Poles, or Germans, or they would try to congregate with their own people because they talked the language, you know.
Right.
And a lot of them didn't know English, you know, so they talk Italian, or even Irish. They're brogue. But
Did your father?
that's the start of it.
Did your father ever tell you, or do you remember, like how officially the Deutscher Club of Galway started?
Well, it started there.
Right, but how did they say, okay, we're formally gonna start a club? Like when did that happen? I mean, it's different
Well,
from.
from that place here, that was just in the store.
Right.
Then they went to the hotel where they had tables like this. So then they could drink and talk and have their beer.
And more
stuff
and more
like that.
people would just
And then finally, you know, it got bigger, you know, because they were saying, "Oh yeah, Fritz, he lives out in Himalaya. Let's get him in," you know. Or then the woman started saying, "You know, we want to come too."
Right.
So before you know, you've got 25, 30 people there. See? And then when these things were run, like in the hotel, when they had dances and like Christmas party. There was only a handful of people running it, you know, and it was mostly all German people, German descent, or friends of German people, you know, and they say, "Yeah, gee, I like that. My grandfather used to play that music, you know, and I like to hear that." So then that's how it grows then. But it's through these ethnic groups is how things build up, because normally, you know, you hang with the people of your own nationality.
Right.
You know.
Did you start? When did you change the meeting place from the Delicatessen to the Cross Keys? Right, Cross Keys.
Well, I don't know how many years it was, but it started in 1935.
Would you have formal meetings, or was it just kind of? When did the
Well,
formal
later on
meetings
they had
start?
formal meetings, oh yeah, with the minutes and everything, sure.
When do you think that kind of started?
When I started, well,
Like membership and, you know.
they started in 35. I would say maybe by 1940 or so, about 5 years later, because then by that time they were still in the hotel. No, yeah, they were still in the hotel. But then they went to the Eagles Home, and then they had regular officers, secretary and vice presidents and treasurer, and they were. I think they were in the Eagles Home about 10 years. You know, I would say in 1940, 41, 42, and we left there in 50 when we moved in here. So I think they were there about 10 years. No, wait a minute, no, I'm wrong. Earlier they were in the hotel, and that was still, yes, because I remember Christmas time of 1941. Now the war was on, that started in Europe. And we were listening to the shortwave radio about the war and so on like that. And there was a German battleship, the Graf Spee, was down in the South Atlantic. It was a warship, but like a pocket battleship, and it was sinking freighters and stuff that stuff wouldn't go to Europe. And then there were 3 British cruisers that were after that little ship down there. They wanted to sink it. And they were chasing it around, and finally they were running out of supplies and everything. So they went into Montevideo Harbor, this German battleship, pocket battleship. And the 3 British cruisers were right here waiting for it to come out. And Uruguay said, you can only stay in here like 2 or 3 days, something like that. Then you got to go. That happened on a weekend, and that Sunday we had the Christmas party for the children and all in the hotel. And they had a big radio in the hall outside. So we had the radio on. They were broadcasting what's happening on down there, and we had the Christmas party going on. So there'd be 4 or 5 guys listening, then we'd run in and take care of the Christmas party, and then we'd run back out here, you know. And that's why we knew what was going on. And then all at once, they had to get out. The Graf Spee had to leave. So the Graf Spee came out to the outer harbor, and they scuttled themselves. They sank the ship themselves. See, they didn't engage the British.
Right.
So they sank. And the crew was left on shore. So the guys that sank it, then they got ashore. You know, I never found out what happened to them, if they ever got back to Germany or were interned for the whole war. I'd like to find that out sometime. But nobody got killed in there. But they sank their own ship.
And what was the name of the ship?
Graf Spee.
Graf Spee.
Graf Spee. There was, I think, they called them a pocket battleship. I think there was 2 or 3 of them.
All right, I'll see what I can do.
Yeah. I never forget that. I mean, we were all glued to that radio, you know, to hear what was going on.
Now, during the war, how big was the club at that point? Like, how many members do you think? In the 40s, how many people were?
Well, this was in 41.
Right, but how many club members do you think we had?
No, wait a minute, no, this was not 41. No, wait a minute, no. This was in 39. 39. Because 39 is when the war started.
Right.
This was December of 39, Christmas of 39. Pearl Harbor was
41.
2 years later,
Right.
see? So we were still neutral at that time, but Germany, they invaded Poland. That was over in 30 days.
Right, right.
But this happened at Christmas time. And then they had in Europe what they called the Sitzkrieg. You know, sit down, Sitzkrieg, because the Maginot Line was here, Siegfried Line was here,
Right.
and they were both facing each other, but they were not shooting at one another.
Right.
So they called it a sitzkrieg. And everybody was saying, well, when are they going to start fighting and all, you know? But the whole winter they sat like that.
Right.
As soon as the weather broke, the Germans came from around the back. Now here's the Maginot Line facing this way.
Right.
They couldn't shoot that way.
Right.
So that was a big blunder that the French made, you know.
Yes.
So and then of course then they wiped out the British there too. But see, that was in the summer or spring of 40 then. But 39 is when the war started. Yeah. So, but when we were over there, my wife and we went into Maginot Line. They had a section there that you could see what it looked like, you know. See, they never thought that they would come from the back, you know.
Well, the tanks developed and everything.
Well,
else.
Siegfried Line was the same way.
Right.
You know.
Right. It worked during World War One, and they
Yeah.
gambled that it would still work with
Yeah.
the technology of
Well,
30
they
years
had
later.
no man's land in World War One.
Right.
You know, they had gas and
Yep,
everything.
mustard gas. Yeah.
But see, now that was in 39, so we were in a hotel at that time. So we were there yet for a couple of more years after that.
How many members do you think were in the early 40s?
Hmm?
Like, how many members of the German
At that
club?
time, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't involved with the membership.
Right.
I mean, I was only 14, 15 years old, you know. But I would say maybe about 50 members or so.
Was there any repercussions being a German club?
No. If you read the books, those books out there, the first few pages.
They're written in German. No.
No. They were investigated by the FBI. I mean, it's letters and everything that my father we saved them. They're all in that book. They were investigated. See, because they had Camp Nordland up in North Jersey there.
Yep.
And a lot of guys went up there,
Right.
you know. So what did the FBI do? They took pictures of all the license plates, see?
Right.
Then they went after those guys. So with the club, they were investigated, and then my father said to them, you know, we hold our meetings in German. Oh no, you can still have German. You don't have to change or anything like that. So they were investigated, but they were never told that they'd have to disband or you'd have to talk English or what.
So they weren't harassed or anything?
I mean, and we had our picnics, and we had our picnic Christmas parties and all, you know. There was one fella that was president in here. Well, I can't remember his name. It'll come to me. His father was sort of a Nazi. He was up to the Camp Bund. He was locked up the whole war. Yeah, his father was locked up.
So the president's father? One of the ex-president's father?
Yeah. Well, he wasn't president at that time.
Right. You don't remember
He was
his
president.
name?
I'd have to look his name up. I got his picture right in front of me. I mean, that was when he was president. That was maybe 40 years before that.
The Bund camp that's up in right off 287 there.
Yeah, well, that was Camp Nordland up
Right.
there that time.
You could still go up there and see the old foundations, the old pool.
Yeah.
The pool's still there.
Huh?
And I took a hike up there a couple years ago.
Yeah.
It's right by where Chris Wagner lives.
Oh, yeah,
It's
okay.
about 10, 15
Yeah, they
minutes.
had the Bund up there, and they had the
Yeah.
swastikas
Yeah.
on, you know, and all that stuff.
Yeah,
And but they took license plates of all the cars. you
right,
know?
right.
Yeah. But well, my father had good backing too from Roy, the mayor. He was German descent, you know, and all that. So a lot of help. But still, they were not restricted. They were not saying, no, you can't have any meetings. You know,
Right.
they said, no, you can have your meetings and you can talk German. Of course, you couldn't say Heil Hitler and
Right.
all that stuff, you know.
Now, so we bought this. What led up to the property being purchased here in the 1950?
Well, this is the first property that we owned. We were renting wherever we were. We were paying rent in the hotel. We were in the Eagles home. We were there until 50, till we bought.
Where was the Eagles home?
If you go on Irving Street in Rahway, go up to the end of Irving Street, there's Grand Avenue there. There's a big building there, it's an apartment house. That's where it was there.
So that's no longer there either.
No. But it was a long building, and it had a hall upstairs like we have here,
Right.
and downstairs was the bar, and you could have a little entertainment there. But everything was upstairs. So, but if you wanted a drink or so, you'd have to go down to the bar, and they made good money on the Germans because they schnapps, Asbach and all that stuff. So they made good money, yeah. But see, then after the war, like in 1948, something like that, they were starting to get German people they come from Newark and things like that,
Right,
Elizabeth
right.
and so on, or down from Perth Amboy and all. They were saying, we ought to look for a place for our own. So they started looking around, and they didn't say, oh, it's got to be here or there, wherever they could find a place. So there was a place over here on Raritan Road. Damn it, I can never think of that name. It's a street that goes from Raritan Road over to Broad Street. It's up towards where the Parkway Circle is.
Walnut?
Damn
No,
it.
not Walnut. No.
Damn it, I know it like I know your name, but
Walnut? Was it Walnut?
no, that's over much further. If you, from here,
Yeah. We'll figure it out.
if you left from here and you went out Westfield Avenue, past the police station and so on, you come to the traffic light, you make a left, you go down towards the Parkway.
Oh,
Now there is one road, then there's another road almost by the Parkway. There's a road there before you come to the
this
traffic
circle.
circle
Okay.
on the
Gotcha,
left.
Gotcha.
I know that name, damn it, I can never think of it. Well, anyhow, there was a building on there. It was, from what I heard and read, it was, I think, a tavern or something like that. But it was a long building. So the powers that be here, they looked at it, and they said, yeah, we could make a nice club there and all. So,
Lexington or Gibbs? Lexington?
no.
Gibson?
No, next, after Lexington.
Gibson? Gibson?
Gibson Boulevard. Gibson
Got
Boulevard.
it. Technology.
Oh, see, that's a miracle. Gibson Boulevard. I always say, try to remember that cowboy hoop trips. Well, anyhow, on this place there was a long building. And it was I think a tavern or so in here. It was empty. So they said, yeah, it would be nice. We could have our dances and stuff in here. When the neighbors found out that a club was going to buy that, they put up such a stink. We don't want any club here. There's going to be a lot of noise and cars and traffic and all that. So we said, if that's the way our neighbors are going to be, I said, we don't want to move there. So then the fellow in Roe, he owned the Roe Chevrolet. He was a KKK. He says, I hear you're, this to my father. He says, I hear you're the club's looking for a building. He says, yeah, we're looking for a building. We don't care where it is, Linden or Roe or Clark or what. He says, we have a place in Clark that we want to sell. He says, where is it? Well, he says, I'll take you up there, So he takes my father up to here, to the road. That other road wasn't in there, it was just
Right.
this road. And he said, it's in here. He said, where? He says, it's way back behind those trees. So they came in that driveway and came to the building. And it's just that white part of the building. All this other stuff was all laid out.
Right.
So he says, it's KKK. He says, we want to sell it because our membership has gone way down, hardly any members. So we want to sell it. And we hear that you're looking for a place. My father says, yeah, we're looking for a place. We don't care where it is, And so he says, well, we got about 3.5 acres here. And he says, well, gee, that's all right. So it went for around 10,500, something like that. So powers to be, they said, all right, well, we'll buy it. So then we said, well, we'll not bonds, we'll sell a certificate of indebtedness.
Okay.
In other words, it's like a bond, but it's a certificate. And you can only buy 3 bonds, because some people will say, well, I'll buy 10 bonds, $100 each, or I'll buy 5. That means I got 10 votes.
I got more
They
share,
said,
right.
if you buy 1 bond or you buy 3,
Same
you
vote.
only have one vote.
Right.
So most of the people bought 3 bonds. You know, some only bought one.
How much were the bonds? Do you remember?
$100.
$100 a bond.
$100. Now, so, all right, then we sold enough that we could buy this place, you know, with a few dollars extra because we had to do a few things, you know, to it.
So how many members do you think you had then?
At that time, maybe 100 or so.
Okay.
Yeah. Because we were getting members from Newark, the German section down there, you know,
Right.
and from Port Amboy and Carteret. We had people from Carteret. Fellow was a bartender, and he was Kurt Hoffman. He was a wonderful man. So we were, and of course the war was over. But don't forget though, there was no parkway out here.
Right.
There was no parkway. Where that street was that time, it just ran over to Round Road. So,
So you would have lost the club, right?
Hmm?
If you bought up on Gibson. Did the parkway go over that property now?
there was no property, there was no parkway at all there.
No, when you were looking at the other place on Gibson.
Yeah,
So when the parkway finally came through, you would have lost
yeah,
a lot
right
of that
through
property.
Gibson House, yep.
Okay.
That's why we're glad we didn't buy it. Yep. So we bought this place here for $10,500, and we sold these bonds. And I was chairman of the bond committee, but you could only buy 3 at the most. But you could buy 3, your wife could buy 3, but see, you only have one vote.
Mhm.
Not that the vote meant anything, but you can't say, oh, I owe 10 bonds, I got 10 votes. You
Right.
only got one vote. See?
Right.
We had meetings after our general meeting, then we had
The board meeting.
We had a bondholders meeting, tell all the people what was going on, what we planned to do. We're going to need some more money because sometimes we cash the bond in. You know, a fellow moved away, or he died, and the wife said, "Oh, I don't want it." So well, anyhow, we always had bonds that we could sell.
How did they cash in the bonds? What was
They were $100.
so you got $100 back when you
Yeah,
cashed it in? There
but
was
we
no-
paid interest on it though.
Okay,
6%.
all right, so
So
you're
you got
2%?
some money, and when we had our meeting for bondholders, then we paid the interest out then.
So it was a 2% interest on there.
Yeah,
On it.
6% then.
A 6%.
No, 4%.
4%. That's not bad. It's better than a bank right now.
Yeah, I was good, sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, and then, say you had a bond, and you died, Now, if your wife was a member, you could transfer, or we would transfer it over to her,
Mhm.
or she could cash it in. Because people are always looking for bonds. We said, "Oh, we don't have any more." But if we had $10,000 out, maybe in time we had only say $7,000. We had $3,000 in the kitty.
Right.
All right, then they say we're going to pay this parking lot here.
Right, right.
We need that $3,000.
Right.
So we sell those $3,000 then. So we always have money coming in.
When women were always able to be members, or no? Women were always able to be member. Where did that transition? Because wasn't it you had to
As
be
far
married?
as I know, they were members, but not paying members. So.
Did they have to be married to a member? If a single woman,
No, we had some Simoon women. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There's one woman I can remember. She was not married. She's Swiss. No, a woman didn't have to be married. No. But sometimes, if a husband died and the woman's a member, and she wanted to transfer, we would do that, or we would cash it in. Or say you moved to Florida, and you say, "I don't want the bond." We always cashed them in, no matter what. We never said no. We don't have the money. We
Right.
always had the money.
do you have any of those original copies of the bonds? Is there one in that
No.
book there? Or no. You cashed yours in.
Hmm?
You cashed yours in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, wait a minute now. I haven't gotten to that yet. I mean, after the place was getting going good, money coming into the bar and stuff like that, we really didn't need that money. So I was still chairman of the bond. Horst was Stabino. He was president. And we had like about $2,000 out, something like $2,000 out. And Horst says, we ought to clean that up. Get rid of those bonds and pay it out. So we paid them out, we cashed the bonds in. But they were not a bond, really. There was a certificate of indebtedness. See, it's a different story.
Right. Somebody knew their taxes.
But you couldn't have a bond and say, I want to give it to my son. You'd have to go through us to give it to him.
Right.
And if he was not a member, you'd have to cash it in then. Yeah. But most of the bonds were all cashed in, but there was a few of them that I don't know, people disappeared, you know, they died or moved away, never heard from. So there was a few that we never
Few outstanding.
cashed in, no. But you know, then talk about the parkway here. Now, there was no parkway here, it was just the streets. So people that would come from Newark and West Elizabeth, all the oranges had to come up to all the back roads, you know,
Right.
and they'd come up and they'd travel, and they did that. But we were only here about 2 years when we heard the talk about a parkway going through. And they said it was going to be from the Raritan River to the Union Toll, that section, parkway. Hey, that's great, you know. So they did that. And people that lived in the area, like in Elizabeth or so, get on the parkway, you could, you know, hop
Right.
off here good.
Union, boom.
So that was good. But see, then they extended it that way and this way, but this section here was built by the state. And there is no toll on that. And we had no toll at the beginning, ever on that. A few times the state wanted to put toll on there, and the legislature said, you can't do that because that was built with state funds. This other stuff was built by funds that they gathered from
Right.
outside.
Who was the builder in Clark?
Builder of this and that.
Yeah, was it Vecchiarelli? Vecca?
Well, no, the builders from the club here had nothing to do
No,
with
no,
it.
no. There was a company in town. They owned basically all of Central Avenue.
Oh, I don't know, remember
Yeah.
that. I don't remember that. But see, that parkway wasn't as wide as it is now. There's a couple lanes that have been added on
Right, oh
the
yeah.
outside. You know.
Started as a two-lane
But
highway.
once that opened up, a lot of people that lived in Newark, Elizabeth, Oranges and all, they came in as members then too. you
Right,
know.
right.
It was a godsend. But then, after the whole parkway was built, we still called it Deutscher Club Rawway. And Tommy Kaczmarek, he was the mayor in Clark. He was a Democrat, because otherwise Clark is a Republican town. But he was mayor, and he was a heck of a nice guy. Tommy was, and he was practically lived in the club too, like some of these other mayors that we had,
Right.
Ernie and so on. Well, anyhow, he says, you know, you guys are in Clark here, and you have that pin that says Rawway on there. He says, why don't you change that to Clark? He says, you're in Clark. So the powers to be said, yeah, I guess you're right, because we are in Clark. And the thing was, people would get off the parkway, and they would say,
Raw air.
Deutscher Club Rawway. Oh yeah, that way. They come to Rawway, there's no club here. So this way here, he says you're in Clark, they send you to Clark here. So that's why we changed it to Clark.
And what year was that about?
Jesus, I wouldn't know. Well, let's see, I became active right when I came home from the war, 46 or so. That was maybe around 1960 or so.
So you were here about 10 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Now, do you remember the building originally when they first purchased it? I mean, what kind of condition was it in?
Well, they had a hot air system in here. Our dance floor, where the dance floor is, where that one column is in this corner here, that's where the furnace was.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the furnace was. And then, of course, you go upstairs on the floor, you'll see a patch there. That's where the vent came up from downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
That was what heated upstairs. That was all the heat that we had in here.
But I'm saying, what was the condition? I mean, I've seen old pictures of the barn house before. And it looked.
Oh, what was this before? I don't know.
Well, I know when you first moved in. I mean, did you have to do a lot of work to, building
Well,
stuff and?
We didn't do a lot of work, no, because first of all, we didn't have the money, and secondly, we didn't need that more room or extra thing. But one thing we did do, we built a bar, but not like this is about the third bar that we built out there.
Right.
And that door that goes out here on the side, that goes into the hall, that was the
front-
outside door.
That was the front door.
See?
Right.
No, not the front door. Front door was in the front, where the door is now in the front. There was a big overhang.
Right,
There's
right.
that picture that shows you on the wall.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
that was our front door.
That's the front
That's
door.
where everybody. This one here was coming in from the parking lot, but that wasn't used so much.
Mm-hmm.
But that was our outside wall.
I have a question. Upstairs, if you go up to the choir room, if you go out those sliding doors out to the roof, double doors out to the roof, right?
When you go upstairs,
Go upstairs,
and you turn the door and you go inside,
make it right.
that room, the way it is there, was all the way to the wall down there. Where the wall is, where the pianist is the
Right.
wall. That was the
That's the
outside
original.
wall there.
Right. Well, if you go, turn right and go through the doors and go out in the roof of the kitchen, right?
You mean upstairs?
Upstairs. Yeah. Go out the door, go onto the roof, right?
Into the back section?
No, stay on the roof. And if you look back at the original,
When you go to the top of the stairs,
Right.
right? You go into the door, you're in that door.
Go-
And the hall is in front of you.
right, and then you go out the doors to the right, onto the roof,
Oh, to the roof?
to the roof.
Okay,
So you turn around and look at that door.
yeah.
There's a big swing, a big rail that used to go over, that's still over the door.
Yeah, there used to be a sliding door there.
So it was a sliding door, that's original?
That
Or
was original, yeah.
why did they have a sliding door there?
Well, the guys that had the building before,
But there was, that building stopped there, right?
yeah.
So why was there a sliding?
That was all added on later, the kitchen down there.
Right, so the sliding door was on the second floor.
Yeah, 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 yeah. There was a sliding door, why or so, I mean, the KKK had that, you know.
Right,
Why it was there, I don't know. But, see, our intention was originally, when we had everything upstairs, our dance floor and dancing, our music, we had music upstairs and all. People downstairs, they had the little floor there and they had the bar. And they said, you know, you got music upstairs, we have nothing down here. So we hired another band. We had two bands, one upstairs, one downstairs.
wow. Wow.
Because we had a side of people that were sitting on a bar buying drinks. We had
Right.
to satisfy them.
Right,
What we did already. Well, anyhow, what you're talking about over there, that sliding door, you know, I forgot all about that, but you mentioned the rack. I remember that now. Those doors weren't there. You know,
Right.
that we put that in later. With the object, when we expanded the kitchen downstairs, we put Flexicore in that ceiling. That's real big, heavy cement
Yep.
things. With the intention of putting another floor on there.
right.
See, that would give us another room up there. But we didn't do it because we dragged it out. And the good thing we didn't do it because when we had our affairs upstairs, our dancing and the music and all, the people that would be sitting in that area, they wouldn't see what the hell's going on, right?
Right, right.
So that's why we never did it. But the ceiling on that kitchen is strong enough to put another floor up there. So that's why we didn't do it.
Right. I like the little balcony.
Some of the people said, when we bought it, we should have tore the shack down and put up a new one. Yeah, we should have. Yeah, that's what we should have done. But we didn't do it, you know. Because, see, the buy-in can't come here to dance. The ceiling's too low downstairs.
Right, right. Oh, okay, gotcha, right.
See,
Right.
they were even talking about extending that wall out, but cutting trees down. We don't want to do that. Then make a higher ceiling so that they could dance there.
Right.
But, I mean, later on we thought about it. We should have tore it down or have a Jewish lightning and put up a building that would meet
Accommodate that.
our
Right.
needs, you know. But we didn't do it. So you do what you have to do, you know.
So did you have regular picnics like we do now? I mean, I know I've seen the videos.
Yeah, we had picnics. Yeah, we
So-
had picnics in Rolway. There were a few picnics.
Where were the
going.
picnics held in Rolway?
Oh, they used to be out in East Rolway and so on. But
In a-
it's all built up.
In a
That's the-
park and everything, or
Well, it was mostly on a farm. Mostly on a farm.
right?
You know. Now, when we were here, all right, when we were still in Rolway, yeah, when we were in the Eagles' home in Rolway, when we had our picnics, we used to have them over here in the log cabin. Now it's the log cabin estates.
Okay, right.
And, well, they called it, there was a building there with a bar in it and all, and they had a nice grove in the back with a roof over the building and all, an open building like we have. And we had our picnics there from about 45 on until we moved in here.
Right.
Then when we moved in here, 1950, we didn't have a pot to piss in because we had nothing, no tables, no chairs. So we still had the picnics over there for a couple of years because we had nothing here.
Right.
Now, they had a nice, in fact, right after the war, we had that bad snowstorm. That pavilion over there blew down. This heavy snow knocked it down. So that was in the wintertime, like in February. And John Donsman, he was a building inspector in town. He was a carpenter. He was a carpenter here. His gang built a new pavilion for them over there because we had a Howard Picky in there in the summertime,
right.
See? So we had it in there for a few years, even though we were living over here.
Right.
Because he had everything there. You know, see, we had nothing here. I mean, people to sit down on chairs and tables. When we did have picnics here, we had to go rent tables and chairs. Well, first of all, we could go to the Eagles home and get tables and chairs, metal chairs. We got some from St. Mark's Church. They had tables and chairs. We had to schlep them here, and then the next day we had to bring them back again. And then I'd come up here at night. The bar would close up, say, at midnight. I'd come up with my dog, and I'd stay here all night, garden the place. Because some tucker would come in, steal two tables
chairs.
or one, you know, then we got to pay for them, you know.
Right.
Then we'd never get them again, see?
Right.
So I stood guard, and then my father would come up about 6:30 in the morning, you know, and he'd say, all right, go ahead home now, you don't need to stay here. Or somebody would come in to open up the bar like at 7 o'clock, you know, then I'd go home. But no, I did that on the whole night I was here. I had my dog, and he'd be running around chasing the squirrels. But see, we had that over in the log cabin. Even we were here for the first 2 or 3 years. Yeah. Because, you know, you go out there and you look, you see all those nice tables, chairs, the kitchen, the beer stands, the music stands, and all. We had nothing like that. All from scratch. In fact, we cooked everything on that field or that section over there.
Right.
And we had a stand there, which was like a ceremonial stand, you know, and then the dance floor to it. We didn't own that property. That was in our property. That belonged to the waterworks.
Yeah. When did you purchase that?
Well, Walter Lehman, you got to give him a lot of credit. They gave this to the city, the waterworks, to Clark. And then after a few years, they said, we don't want. Then the county says, we'll take it over.
Right.
Well, before that happened, Walter got in cahoots with the powers to be, and the water department, and he got that property.
Where was the property stopped? Where was the original property?
Well, where the road is there, where the bandstand, where the columns are.
Right.
To hold that the pavilion up, that was the road.
That was the property.
Everything that towards the water was waterfront property. So if you go there and you look down, you see the fence running along, then it comes over this way and goes down. He wanted that section too. They said, no, we'll give you this, but you don't go that far. Otherwise, we would have had it all the way down the road. You know, down
maybe in the next couple of years we'll have that too.
Yeah, so he did that. Walter did that, yeah.
Good.
If it wasn't for that, because they could have put a fence up here, could have put a wire fence up here, and then we could have used it for a picnic.
Right. When did they start opening picnics to the public?
Well, right after. Well, it was always open to the public, even over there too in the tavern. See, but in the tavern they have a regular liquor license,
right.
So that doesn't matter. You know, anybody can come up there and either to the Grove or go inside. Here we were lucky to get a club license. So with a club license, you only can sell stuff inside here.
Right.
So, and I handled all that too for years. I had to order special licenses for all these events, even inside, like you say, Bays and Boom Ball or Halloween night. They have a special license. That's special. That's beside your liquor license.
Right.
You pay for that.
Yep.
That started out like $20 for a license. Then it went to $25. Then it went to $50. Then when Greavy went in, that son of a bitch, he jacked it up to $150.
I think that's where we're still at right now.
And it's been like that ever since.
Yeah.
But it started off as $20.
Right. Do you remember what the first your earliest remembrance of how much dues were?
How many what?
How much dues were? Membership dues.
Dues, yeah. Well, when I came home from the war, they made me membership secretary right away. So I had a black book with all the names in there. And the meetings were, they were in the Eagles Hall already at that time. And I had a book, so I had to go around here. You owe me 50 cents, $6 a year dues.
$6 a year.
Yeah, 50 cents a month. So a lot of them paid 50 cents a month. So I had the book out of market, and 50 cents, it's 50 cents. Some of them paid the whole year. Give me the $6. Oh, that was great. I didn't have to bother for the whole year. And it stayed like that for years until we got this place. Then they had to raise it, Then maybe it went like to $10 and then $20.
So that was like $6
a year.
40.
So that was 50 cents a month.
Right. So 1948, $6. Wow. So we're doing pretty good, even at $80.
Yeah, well, a married man was only making $40 a week at that time.
Right. You
So
were lucky to.
50 cents a month,
Yeah.
a year. No, a month.
So we should raise our dues. Is that what you're saying?
Huh?
So we should raise our dues. Is that what you're saying? No.
Well, some people paid a year.
Right.
Some
right.
of them. But a lot of them don't. They're 50 cents,
That works. That works.
Yeah. But we had, then after we bought this place, then we still had the picnic over there yet. And, I guess it was for the first 2 or 3 years. And I remember one time a politician would come over to the Grove, and they'd say, I'm running for so-and-so. Can I say a few words? I said, sure. I said, we're not a political club. You can say whatever you want, or Democrat or Republican comes in.
Right.
One time, Minor came in, and we didn't know him. He says, can I say a few words? He said, my name is Robert Minor. I'm running for governor. Yeah, sure, yeah. So he said a few words, and he was elected governor. But we had a few congressmen that came already. A guy from California, Nolan, he was here. I made him a member. And the guy they put in jail from Jersey, he was a assemblyman or
Boss? Boss? No, probably
No.
earlier than that.
starts with the H, I think. He was sitting down on a bar, I remember a few times.
How long ago?
Oh, geez, maybe 40 years ago.
Oh no! I'm thinking of somebody else. Who decided to put the Weinstube in here, or the Rathskeller?
Well, see, we were looking for somebody to run the place, live here and run it. So then Gottfried, I didn't know him at that time, but members from the club knew him. He was manager of the place in Irvington, the German club in Irvington, and they were going to close up. So they said...
What year was that? What year was that?
Well, I don't know. Gottfried was here about 25 years. Well, I couldn't read. That was maybe around 1960, because see, we said that if we were talking about making the place bigger, if we put on an apartment upstairs, then we can have a manager live here.
Right.
And that was around 1960
Okay.
that we did that, because they were closing his place up. So we said, if we get somebody, then he can live here and be here and watch the place too at the same time.
Right.
So that's why we put that on, because where that double door is down there, that was the outside door. All that other stuff was all added on.
Right.
And then all this, this was a garage here, a couple of garages. This was done much later. But then upstairs, that was added on when this was done. But I think it was 1960 when we started. See that wall where the dance floor is? There was a wall there. We took that out because that dining room was there.
Right.
Philip Booth built that. That was a porch before, and he enclosed it. But people were sitting in there and they couldn't see what the hell was going on here. That was the same problem we would have had upstairs.
Right.
So when we started to do that renovating here, he was a membership. He was a member here too. He was a carpenter, and he was sort of in charge. He worked for this company that was doing the work here, I can't think of his name. Well, anyhow, they knocked that wall out, so it made a bigger room then there, you know. Yeah. And then down below where those trees are down there, we didn't own them. That ground was up for tax sale. All that empty ground from the bridge all the way over to where the houses are was up for tax sale. And we said, gee whiz, it would be good if we had that, you know. So we said, well, look, we don't want all of it. Suppose we'll speak to Hart Miller. Maybe we'll go 50-50. You know, we'll buy it. We'll bid for it.
Split it.
If we get it, he'll pay for his half. We'll pay for our half. And he was in agreement with that. Yeah, all right, okay. He said, yeah, okay. So we went to the city hall and we bid on it and we got it. I forget what it was. It was not much, like $6,000 or $8,000, something like that. So we cut it in half. He got it, and we got half. Of course, hindsight is not
2020, right.
We should have kept the whole thing.
How deep did that go? Up to?
Well, it's from where the parking lot
like the new
ends,
driveways?
Gotcha. All the way to the sidewalk.
Gotcha.
But see, there's a big gully in there. That's one bad thing.
Right.
Our intention was we could use the parking lot across the street and let the people walk across the street, and we built a bridge there so you could walk over that gully and then come up here. But it didn't work out. And then, of course, he got the better half.
Right.
But we should, in hindsight, we should have kept the whole thing.
Right.
But we did a lot of work down there. We cleaned out a lot of stuff and all, and
We've actually looked back into using across the street, using that bridge, because our parking lot fills up way too fast.
yeah.
So.
Well, that bridge would have to be redone.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's in great condition.
The over the gully going over? Yeah.
It's in great condition.
Well, I know we built it like a brick shit house, but that was a long time ago.
It's still in great condition. I was back there this summer.
You know what I was thinking? You're talking about that. I was thinking, of course, it's fine in theory, but if you use that parking lot over there and that bridge, have people come in, then have a little jitney down here, you know, like
like golf carts?
Golf carts, or to
Right.
drive the people up here.
We can do that. We can make some kids earn tips.
See, but see, then somebody would have to do that the whole day, because people go home at 4 in the afternoon and
Right.
they don't go home till 8 at night, you know, so
Right.
he'd be there the whole day. So he would have to be paid,
Right.
and besides, the stones that are on that parking lot, I know that was a mistake that we did it, but all right, it's done. It's hard to walk on that stuff,
Right.
especially women with their shoes on, you know.
Especially,
You know. But if you had a little golf cart that would buy the bridge and then drove the people up here, you know, and then
Right.
drove them back again, but the guy would have to be paid, because he'd have to be there the whole day, even until like 9 o'clock at night.
Right.
They park their cars over there at night.
Right.
They walk back there. They'll walk as far as the road, but then they got to walk. I ride and then have to walk across.
Well, the other concern was them crossing the street
Yeah.
right there too. So.
Either that or one of these new wings with the motor on it, you know, flying around, let them fly over. But that property we bought on tax sale, and so that roughly gives us roughly 5 acres here then. Yeah. See, and he next door, he's got the same pieces we have here, and next door is another story. We were only in here about 2 years, and family owned it. That they didn't do any more farming when we were here, you know,
Right.
but it was used for farming. So it was up for sale, and they wanted about $11,000 for it, but we didn't have the money.
Right.
After here only 2 years, we owed people thousands of dollars, you know,
Right.
and we didn't have any money in the bank to
Right.
throw around. We didn't have the money for it. So we said, we can't afford it. I mean, just to buy it, we could have put our manager in there, let him stay in there, you know. Or if we had this, then stay here and rent that out then, you
Right.
know. But we didn't buy it. So then it was sold. Today you couldn't touch it for $1 million.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll wait for John Conway, and then we'll take his place.
Yeah. Well, we got a good tenant, a good neighbor there.
Yes.
But you can never tell what happens if he sells it, you know. He
Right.
may say, I want to split it up and put houses there or something like that, you know.
Right.
because, you know, I often think, like, well, Montgomery Hall was in the town, but the one out in Springfield, that German place out in Springfield, years ago, it was out in the fields, you know, nothing
Right,
around it.
right.
But then they started selling property around it, and houses were...
Right, you're
starting to
talking
come
about
up,
Farches
come
Grove.
up.
Farches Grove?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
no, not Farches Grove.
That's in Union.
In
In
Springfield.
Springfield. There's another German club in
The
Springfield.
one in Farches Grove, the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, but this one down in, geez, at night, when you go out Westfield, go to Park, go over Route 22, you're heading towards Springfield.
Right.
There's like a deli on the corner, and they have a big sign, Springfield.
Right.
Well, that's the sign. That was the name, the sign for the grounds that were. It was a German club there.
Uh-huh.
They had, I don't know how many acres. It was a big place,
Right.
and that sign was telling people that was there. You know. And houses starting to be built around and around and around and around. And before you know it, they were getting so many complaints. We got to hear all that noise on a Sunday and this and that, and peace and quiet and all that. They sold it.
Yeah, we get that here too.
Yeah, but not a much like that.
No.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But still, if that wasn't a lake, you'd have them right to that fence,
Right.
their backyards.
What do you hope for the future of the club?
Well, I don't know. I mean, who knows? Who knows? You know, like now, this damn sickness that they have going around with that mosquito, that may wipe out half of the civilization, you know? Start all over again with wagon wheels or so. Well, you know, my father said to me, he's been dead now since 1974, what, 40 years, 40, 50 years. He said, what's going to happen to the club when we're gone, his generation, you know? What's going to happen to the club when we're gone? Now you're saying the same thing. What's going to happen when we're gone? Who knows?
Well, I hope to carry that torch.
Yeah, yeah. See, we should have bought that. But then, of course, at the time, we didn't have the money.
Right.
You know, and we had enough to do here to build this
Right.
place up and
Right.
all. You
That's
know?
gorgeous.
But if we would have bought it, we could have let somebody rent the house, you know, you'd have some kind of income. Then look at all the parking space we'd have.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
But that would be an expensive parking lot.
Yes, it would be.
I don't know
Especially
exactly how much
taxes,
you
too.
pay
The
in
taxes.
taxes, but
We pay a lot in taxes.
but you would pay a hell of a lot more with that.
Yes, we would.
Well, look at John, where he lives over here. He pays a lot of taxes. He says he's got a farmland, but he says, no, that's not big enough for a farm. So he pays a lot of taxes.
Well, I am running out of tape.
Uh-oh,
We've spoken for 2 hours.
2 hours.
2 hours.
I didn't know I could talk that long.
But I want to thank you so much. This was a
Okay,
pleasure,
all right.
and I'm glad we got this chance to capture it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll go home now and they'll say, oh, jeez, I forgot to tell him that. I forgot to tell him that. I should have said that, you know.
That's what Michael Sheridan just said. He goes, "Oh, I forgot to mention I went to Rutgers." You know, like,
Add another tape in there, appendix or so, you know.
we got 2 more hours to go.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm the oldest member here, I think, age-wise and time-wise. Because there may be another person that's older than I am. It could be 98 or 97, but they only are maybe a member 10 years or maybe 30 years even.
Right.
But I'm a member since 1942. 42. So that's 72 years.
Yeah.
74 years now.
God bless you.
Yeah. So I knew right from the beginning that what we were, you know. But we had good mechanics in this place. I tell you, they did a lot of work here. And a lot of it for free, too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Still going on today.
Yeah.
Still
yeah.
going on today.
You got a good gang working here outside and all clean up. That's all free. All right, they get a few fruit tickets or something like that, but that's not the point. They're here when you need them, you know.
Mhm.
And we lost a lot of good ones that were good helpers and workers, and they went on further down the road. But if it wasn't for the volunteers here, you couldn't carry it. You couldn't do it.
Oh, yeah.
If you got to pay for everything, you know. Well, but like you say, what's the future going to be? Well, maybe it's just as well that we don't know, you know, that we don't know. Because I could say, well, I'm not going to be here much longer, but you could say, what's going to be when you're gone? You're what, 50?
40.
40. Oh,
50.
geez, the youngster. Well, say you live till 90. That's 50 years from now.
Right.
Now, I've seen 50 years, even more than 50 years from here. So if it holds what you'll be in my shoes, some guy will have a machine like that, having you talk and say, yeah, I remember a guy that was 50 years here, and now I'm 50 years here.
Well, I hope I have that day.
Well, you will,
Thank
you
you,
will.
Joe.
That good German
Thank you.
beer, that doesn't corrode the pipes,
No,
it cleans them out.